And it was sort of interesting because they would, this book I think points this out too, that the Rockefeller brothers would get together every so often and they would discuss how Nelson could become president without having to be elected.
Isn't that rather interesting? Because everybody, for the viewers anyway, Nelson Aldrich was the senator who did what?
Right. Well, Nelson Aldrich is the, was the maternal grandson of Senator Aldrich of Rhode Island. Senator Aldrich of Rhode Island was the one who sponsored the bill that gave us the Federal Reserve Bank.
Thank you. So bankers created this for themselves, and we and our children are being slowly enslaved. Yes.
That's right.
Just so the viewer knows, when they hear the name Rockefeller and they hear Nelson Rockefeller, don't leave out Aldrich.
Aldrich. So you go to Rhode Island, you might see a few buildings named after Aldrich or a couple of roads, and you say, oh, who's this? Very key player back then.
So these brothers, yes. Wasn't it also the Rockefeller family that donated the land for the United Nations?
For the United Nations, that's right. In fact, there might even be a picture in here.
I believe so.
There's a picture of John D. Jr. giving a check.
Exactly.
Now, John D. Jr. is the one that married Senator Aldrich's daughter, Abby.
Yep.
Okay. Then she was quite the internationalist in her own right as well.
Well, the viewers should realize, follow the money. Who gave you the money for the UN? Who gave you the land for the UN in Manhattan?
That's right.
Who do you think the UN is going to benefit?
It's not going to benefit the average American.
And not even the average African or the average, Malaysian.
That's right.
Yeah, it was done for bankers, by bankers, just like the Federal Reserve. So, it's funny, the conspiracy word. You had asked me earlier in a previous show, and you said, doesn't it, what do you got it when you got a couple people doing illegal things behind the scenes?
Telling lies, and benefiting from it financially and politically and career-wise. Yeah,
my viewers, I try to tell my viewers it's a coincidence theory, not a conspiracy.
Coincidence, right.
It's just a coincidence that bankers gave the land. It's just a coincidence bankers paid for the land.
Well, you know what's interesting? We live in this so-called politically correct era. We're supposed to be adults. We should be able to tell the truth and speak the truth without having to worry about the thought police or self-policing ourselves.
You got it. So, yeah.
If this is what it is, let's say it. And if an organization that is exposing this, the organization should be applauded. Well, I heard some things way back when about. No, let's be grown-ups. Let's stop being afraid, and let's go out there and say we've got a country to save. We should stop worrying about what other people think. Be proud of the fact you're an American and that you love the country. Don't sit around there and whisper and worry about what you might lose your job because someone belongs to this.
Exactly.
We're going to lose a lot more than jobs, believe me. And we're already losing. When people say, I might lose my job. Well, these people that are supposed to be supporting you have already give us NAFTA. They want to give us a North American Union. We've lost millions of jobs.
The whole global warming swindle.
That's right. So it's another important. It's a quick read. It's about 185 pages, and it's available. It's out of print, but they're available on Amazon. I don't know how much time we have left here. This is a book by John McManus, who's the president.
I like John. I've met John.
John's a great guy. And by the way, he'll be speaking at Faneuil Hall. I don't know when your show will be airing. December 12th of 2009.
Excellent. At the Tea Party.
Tea Party.
Excellent.
Yep. And among others, there'll be a number of speakers there. But John McManus wrote this book in the mid-90s, Changing Commands. It deals with how the U.S. military is put under the control of the UN. And some people might remember Timothy, I met the young man too. He was a soldier, he was a specialist, E4, that would not wear a UN
That's correct.
helmet.
Yes, and he said, no, I swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution,
he was out of
not
Texas,
to fight for, not to fight for some globalist.
He was an E4, and it shouldn't have been E4, it should have been done by admirals and generals and high-ranking officials saying, we took an oath to defend the U.S. Constitution, not the UN Charter. We're not going to serve under their command.
Exactly.
Yeah. But anyway.
So there are good Americans, and that is good news.
That's right.
The other thing, Mr. McManus, also a former Marine?
That's right, yes. He was a Marine Corps officer, yeah. In fact, John McManus was involved in the Lebanon issue back in 1958 and 59. And it was interesting because we published a book about that. It was about the former Secretary of State under Eisenhower. It was called what was it called? Well, anyway, it was a little paperback book. And the author of the book went up to John McManus and he said, you were in the Marine Corps. You went to Lebanon in 1958. He said, yeah, what was that about? He said, I don't know. You tell me. So he did his research. He came back. He said, John, this is what I discovered. There was a pro-Western leader, and Christian leader in Lebanon. You had pro-communist opposition, vying for power. The Marines went in. The powers were changed. We left, and you had a pro-communist government there. And you've had instability ever since. And that, he said, that's why
this
the Marines
is similar like to what we did with Mossadegh.
What we do with everybody.
Yeah, and by having, once again...
Look at Haiti. Look at Haiti.
The same thing they're doing to us now, and that is divide and conquer. By keeping the factions fighting, okay, they benefit.
John Foster Dulles, by the way, it was a book about him. It was called The Actor. And by the way, John, see, also it dovetails. John Foster Dulles was at the founding meeting of the Council on Foreign Relations. He was a relatively young man. He and his brother.
Let us be surprised.
They were the part of this Colonel Mendelhouse's inquiry, these bright young men of the future who are going to kind of pave the way for this new world of ours. So John Dulles was a very pivotal character. And today he's not known by too many people, but he was a very influential person at that time. So this is it's a good book. If you're in the military, you've got a loved one in the military, it's an important read.
Changing Commands.
Now, this one, John McManus wrote this book about William F. Buckley, excuse me, the late William F. Buckley. This book was published, I think, in 1903 or 04, 2003 or 2004, when Mr. Buckley was still writing and still a very prominent and influential person. And today, people will say, well, Buckley was sort of the grandfather of the conservative movement.
Co-opting.
Yes,
that's where I go with it. Just like you see with the environmental movement and this new climate change, global warming thing, where they co-opted some. Tell me about the co-opter.
I think this book, hindsight's 20/20, but it isn't just a biography of Mr. Buckley. It's sort of a biography of the neoconservative movement. And when you hear the word conservative, you think, well, if it's neo, it's new, and it's conservative, then if you're a conservative, it must be a good thing.
Yeah.
That's part of this deconstruction, the idea that terms don't mean much anymore, or terms
We're
have very little
Orwellian.
meaning.
Yes.
But anyway, it goes into Buckley's background. Buckley's father was a Texas oil man, some wealth. He was a patriot.
Okay.
He was a patriot. He was an American firster. He was a constitutionalist. The term paleo-conservative. And Buckley's instincts were paleo. It means constitutionalist, live in a government, no intervention. That's what his roots were. But a funny thing happened on the way to Yale. He becomes a Yale. He joins Skull and Bones, another secret organization.
Exactly.
He gets hooked up with the CIA, and his book that made him a household name in some circles, God and Man at Yale. It was a speech that he was supposed to deliver but wasn't allowed to deliver, and it became a best-selling book. And before you know it, the guy's catapulted from somewhat bingo.
Rocket.
And he is now the spokesman for the conservative movement.
See that exactly.
He's also the guardian for what he considers respectable conservatism.
Co-opting.
He was a good friend of Robert Welch, the founder of the John Birch Society. Robert Welch thought he was a remarkable young man. He was a very intelligent, there's no question about it. He was a very brilliant writer and very intelligent man. Robert Welch supported his magazine. By the way, his magazine was always losing money, National Review. And one time back in the early 70s, he was asked, well, it was thousands of dollars in shortfall. How would you be able to make up for it? And he said, oh, by speaking honorariums. Well, you do the math, and it didn't come close.
It didn't work out.
He might have got a few bucks to speak at some colleges, but not enough to cover that thing. So other people speculate that it was always a CIA front, but that's another.
It's interesting because now
another issue.
It was Colby, I believe, who said that anyone who's on our media, on the major media, is actually controlled by the CIA. Now we have Anderson Cooper. All right, Anderson 360, right?
Oh, yeah.
I call CNN, CIA News Network, but here's 10 years with the CIA, and he's telling us what the news is. For you viewers out there, and I got to wrap with this, and we're going to say, folks, you've got an opportunity.
Just getting warmed up.
You've got an opportunity, okay, to not only expand your mind in different directions that may have already gone, but to consider, have you been lied to before? When you turn on the television, no matter what channel you go to, they're all telling the same story at about the same time. And when the commercial break goes and they come back, they've got another of the same story. It tells you that nobody's doing any investigative journalism, that all the stuff is canned.
It's canned, yeah.
Totally canned. And they realize it now because they've been lied into wars. They've been lied about the swine flu. They've been lied about everything constantly. And now the global warming, the climate gate's coming out. Check it out. There's your homework.
I have a prediction to make.
Go ahead.
Not based on past practices. Because of this global warming scandal, there has to be a sex scandal to take the attention away from this.